You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast, where all who knows fear burns at our touch.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the bad boy of X-Men podcast, and there's Jenkins. Hey, Adam.
Hey, it's a little damp in here. Why are we recording in a swamp this week?
Because we wanted to have our man things out, our giant-sized man things. We've done the joke. Everyone wanted all episode. Giant-sized man thing. We all get it. It is very funny that they named a comic that. Continues to be the best use of man thing.
It's fantastic. And I guess it explains why we're covered in moss and slime and peat moss and, whatever.
Adam, as you know, I have slowly retreated from the digital world.
Yes.
And have decided to make myself one with the mycelium network.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do still need to be entirely online. I need to be too online. But now I'm online about, hey, what's changing in the acidity of the soil? And are we able to find food that we can break down and process this way or that way? Let the mycelia tell us. I'm trying to remember. I'm mad now. I'm trying to remember what's the name of the little strandy thingies.
Are you like
that mushrooms have?
Yeah,
that, like fungus have. What are those?
I know this is part of your hashtag fungus core, but I'm
hashtag
not
fungus
a big
core.
mushroom. Yeah, I'm not as big a mushroom guy, so I'm not sure. I'm just going to go with you and say sure, mycelia, whatever it is.
Guys, if you want to get into mushrooms, go buy The Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. Yes, his name is Merlin Sheldrake, like he's a wizard. He's just a guy that really likes mushrooms. He's like a professor. They did just put out a illustrated version this year.
Ooh.
Slightly abridged. I haven't actually gotten a chance to read it, but I do know the illustrated version is half off right now on on certain websites, and I need to buy that because it'll have good pictures of mushrooms. Merlin Sheldrake is also the guy who wrote the IMAX mushroom thing that Bjork is
really
narrating. Yes. Adam, that's how when you sent it to me, I was like, no, I already know about this, but thank you. I'm glad that people are taking an interest in my interests.
See, I didn't know that aspect of it. I just knew the Bjork part, and I was like, well, she's made an album about mushrooms, so she...
Has she?
Oh, yeah. Come on. She's hashtag fungus core, buddy.
Here's what I know about Bjork.
Yeah.
Here's what I know about Bjork. Wore that swan dress one time. End of list.
Oh, Zach, so much to explore. I mean, come on. 90s icon that really just keeps exploring the depths of weirdness. I mean...
Sounds great. I'm going to find her mushroom album and save it right now.
Yeah, I think it's the one that comes after Vulnicura.
Is it Biophilia? I
think it might have been Biophilia.
It's weird.
It's hard to tell though, because she writes so much music about science now. Like some of her music is even being used in Icelandic science curricula to like explain certain concepts and things.
Oh
like that.
No, it's she has a 2022 album called
Fossora.
Fossora.
That's it. That's
got some very vaginal mushrooms on the cover.
Mm-hmm. Yep, check it out, man. Mushroom rock. I mean, it's not.
But there's a song called Fungal City on here, and a song called Mycelia. I'm so into this.
Can't wait for you to get into Bjork, Zach. It's just.
I'm not going to get into Bjork.
Bjork is great.
The closest to Bjork I've ever gotten into is the song "Young Folks" by Peter, John, and Mary or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is regionally close to Bjork, but not the same music.
No, not even close. But I do think there's a Bjorn in that title.
Oh, Peter, Paul, something like Peter, Mary, and Bjorn or whatever. Jeez, why can't I think about Young Folks?
I know what you're talking about.
One time, the thing about Young Folks, and this is the last thing we're going to do until we talk about Man Thing, because we have to get on top. It's Peter, Bjorn, and John. The last thing about Young Folks is once at a Friendsgiving, It was not even late into the evening.
Mhm.
And I did the widest thing I've ever done, which
Okay.
is while drinking a beer and playing beer pong in my friend Jacob's basement. We were adults at the time. Like, we had houses and stuff. We were just trying to relive our college.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. The way we
Glory
are.
days.
That song came on, and I throw my cup down. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my jam!" And it's just going like, yeah, it was great time. We all enjoyed it. Everyone had fun. Man Thing is here though.
Yeah. Before I mean, geez, I was just about to go off on another tangent about how they.
No, we should, folks. This is an X-Men podcast.
Are you aware of the fact that that song was sampled for a pop song that was used in Top Gun Maverick?
I am not aware of anything about Top Gun Maverick.
Okay.
I know nothing about Top Gun Maverick.
There is a song in the Top Gun Maverick soundtrack that samples that song, young folks.
Really? That sounds like I would be mad at the song. Like I get mad at Kid Rock when I think I'm about to hear Werewolves of London and I'm not.
Yeah, it's One Republic the song is called I Ain't Worried. And
One Republic, I didn't actually think that my Kid Rock joke was going to be as relevant, but no, I would have exactly the same reaction.
Yeah, it's a real odd choice. All right, sorry. Tangent over. Man Thing. And X-Men fans might be wondering, why are we talking about Man Thing? So Zach,
because it's here. You guys want an answer? Y'all want an answer? It's like episode 330. There's only so many X-Men comics, and dang it, we're doing it for us now. We told you when the Attitude Era started. We're doing this for us now. You can either listen or not, and that's fine. I don't look at the numbers anymore.
You should listen to this. There's some wacky stuff in this one. This was a Patreon request, though, wasn't it?
Yes, it absolutely was a Patreon request by Patreon supporter Kyle. Still, if you want to be like Kyle, you can go on over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks and toss a couple of coins into our coffers.
Woo.
Kyle wanted, it's $5 if you want to give us requests. The lines, listen, put a request in. We'll see what we can do. We're getting experimental now.
Mm-hmm.
In that
like Bjork.
I told you so much on this podcast. I don't understand that reference, but that's fine, Adam. We're gonna roll with it. Because Kyle requested Man Thing Volume 2, number 11, titled Hell's Gate, and Kyle asked me when they sent it in, they were like, does this count? And I said, I don't care. It absolutely counts now.
It absolutely does count because, yes, does this feature some minor supporting X-Men characters in it? Yes, but it also stars its writer, famous X-Men scribe Chris Claremont, who was writing Man Thing Volume 2, though he is the narrator and this, sort of the bookend star of this comic book. And we know this just from the cover. What a cover.
The cover in script says over it says tear-stained last issue of The Man Thing. And then Danny Fingeroth writes on there, I give up. I can't write cover copy for this crazy book. I mean, how do I explain that Doctor Strange dies and that Chris Claremont, writer of Man Thing and X-Men, also buys it in this ish? No one's going to believe it. I don't even believe it. And I edit the book. Danny Fingeroth.
And we open on a small cafe crowded with people. I guess it's a bar.
It's a bar.
Because Chris Claremont's drinking his night away, smoking a cigarette, looking pretty dang haggard. Chris Claremont has been drawn many times in comics. This is not a flattering look for him.
I don't know if it's not a flattering look for him or if it was 1981, which means it was still the 70s in fashion sense. And he just looks like, again, any man in the 70s.
The artist is Val Merrick and is definitely trying to get a likeness of Claremont. But, I've met Claremont. I've seen photos of Claremont in the 80s, and this guy looks a little more haggard than what I think Claremont looks like. But, it's okay. He's supposed to be haggard.
I gotta bet that Chris Claremont looked that way more like more likely than we want to admit sometimes.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's supposed to look very downtrodden. So much so that Wheezy, Louise Simonson, Jim Shooter, and who else is there? Oh, and Danny Fingeroth are there to try and find Chris because he's been missing. Why has Chris been missing? Well, he's been on a bit of a misadventure.
So Chris Claremont is trying to tell people that Man-Thing's real, so he's not writing Man-Thing anymore. He went into Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yeah, I mean, he's having this romantic date, lovely evening, when he sees a pirate ship soaring through the sky, and he sends his his significant other off to find help, and he runs into the Sanctum Sanctorum, only to be attacked and stabbed by a pirate named
John Daltrey.
Daltrey, yeah.
John Daltrey, for people who don't know Man-Thing, in Chris Claremont's run of Man-Thing, was the sheriff of Cypress County, Florida. Home of the Citrusville swamps where Man-Thing lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, Man-Thing protects the nexus of all realities.
Yes. Which is
what... It's also in Havoc and, 7 other things.
Yes. Yeah, the nexus is... it's spread around a little bit, but, we get this pirate killing Chris Claremont, and then we immediately cut to Man-Thing jumping out of a closet, I guess, crashing through a wall. Man-Thing used to be Ted Sallis. He is not Ted Sallis anymore. He is Man-Thing. Do we need to explain Man-Thing?
Hey guys, do you know, let's see. Do you know very famous comic book Swamp Thing?
Yes. Familiar with the idea.
Do you know the general concept of a swamp thing? A creature of the swamp?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what Man-Thing is. People try and give Man-Thing an actual personality or dialogue sometimes, and I hate that. They shouldn't do that. Man-Thing's a weirdo. Man-Thing shouldn't be extant. It just is.
No, he just sort of wanders around. He has these droopy things on his face. He's got kind of like an elephant proboscis and 3 of them, that drape over his eyes. Anyway, he's currently living with Barbara Bannister and the personification of death, Joseph Kowalski.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
We find out that John Daltrey, the pirate boy, has been possessed. He's not normally a pirate. Has been possessed by Throg, the Nether Spawn.
Thog, not Throg. Thog.
Thog. I'm sorry. I keep thinking of Throg.
Yeah, it's not Throg. We don't want to confuse our listeners.
Thog and Throg are different. Also, this is not the same as Thog the Ancient from the Hyborian Age.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Don't want to get our Thogs confused.
It's almost definitely just Chris Claremont stealing that name. I'm sorry, this is a Steve Gerber character. This is almost definitely Steve Gerber stealing that name.
Yeah. I mean, and Thog is just a red devil guy. It's not very exciting. But to fight this evil, Barbara Bannister has to be turned into her own personification of death, which then I guess puts her in a sexy unitard. Cool. But then she has to go be there when someone dies. So they end up this is all very strange.
Chris Claremont famously was, I don't want to know if I want to say involved in or dating a witch. He was dating a Wiccan practitioner who was very in the New York scene in the 70s. Mm-hmm. That's just a thing. So part of this feels like Chris Claremont just going and everyone knows about this stuff. We all know how these spells work.
It does kind of seem that way. After this roadside accident where Barbara witnesses this death, or perhaps causes it because she's a personification of death, they all end up in Thog's underworld. And to stop Thog,
who all ends up in Thog's underworld?
Well, right now, when they get there, it's just Kowalski, Man-Thing, and Barbara Bannister. But then once they get into the lair, we learn that Daltrey has a whole crew of people who he is stabbed with his pirate sword. So who's here, Zach? We got a whole cast here.
Clea's here. Doctor Strange is here. Andrew and Jennifer Kale are here. Dakeem the Enchanter's here. Also, Margolian Jiminy Sardos.
Yeah.
Kurt's
So there
mom,
you go.
Kurt's mom and his sister lover.
His gal pal. So, there's some fighting. Man-Thing knocks the pirate guy out. Man-Thing is turned back into Ted Salas for a couple minutes.
Chris
And
Claremont becomes a Man-Thing for a couple minutes.
Yep. Chris Claremont does become Man-Thing, and then Ted Salas does become Man-Thing again at the end, and everybody's fine. Chris Claremont is returned just in time to hear that he doesn't have to keep writing Man-Thing anymore. Jim Shooter's letting him off the hook.
Jim Shooter just cancels this book on page, which is incredibly funny. Like, if I handed this book to someone, I don't want to say it would be impossible to understand, because I think you get the deal of, oh, these are Chris Claremont's the guy who writes this book. These are identified as the editors of, like, people at Marvel, and Jim's their boss. He's the very tall man with the bad haircut. I'm sorry, he is. Both of those things are true.
Sure.
He was a haggard veteran of the comics industry by the time he was 30. Oh, and Shooter's like, yeah, Chris, we're canceling the book. You don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to
That's
torture you
fine.
anymore. And of course, then we learn in the final couple panels that Chris Claremont and Steve Gerber before him really weren't writing the book at all. It was actually the wizard Dakeem who reveals himself as the bartender of this establishment, who's been sort of, I don't know, like moving the pen for them and giving them all their ideas.
Yeah, he's been being like, actually, all these things did happen, and I made sure they got written down the right way. It's great. This is a weird comic.
Is it great? I mean, this is a weird comic book.
This is a comic where Chris Claremont gets drunk and talks about the time that he turned into a Man-Thing. So yeah, I think it's a great comic book, Adam. I think that's about the best comic you can get.
It sure is trippy. I mean, it's a messy thing that, like, I would like the antagonist to this interesting story to be a little better, because you're stuck with John Daltrey the pirate and Thog the devil guy, and like that's not that interesting when you come down to it.
Here's the conundrum with Man-Thing. I think this is a solvable conundrum.
Okay.
But it's the conundrum with Man-Thing as a character, in that Man-Thing is a horror movie monster.
True.
And he's also he's also the protagonist, but he cannot speak or have all that much internality. Like, he has not evolved in the same way that Swamp Thing has, where he's just like a weird green dude.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. But like, Man-Thing doesn't have sexy arms.
No. His whole
Man-Thing has a better design than Swamp Thing, though, and people aren't ready to hear that. But it's true, and we all know it.
I love the Man-Thing design. I think he's great, and really, it's hard to write stories about a guy who just wanders around attracted to like tragedy and sadness and sorrow. It's tough.
And then burning anyone who's afraid of this giant swamp monster that just appeared out of nowhere. That's the weirdest thing. Why do they burn at the touch of Man-Thing when they know fear? Only those that know fear who burn at the touch of Man-Thing. But like, I don't know how the swamp gave him fire powers, but I love it. I love Man-Thing.
It's a good time for everybody. So why don't we try and rank this on our big list and see what kind of a good time it is compared to the other books?
That's the thing, Adam. We do have a big list, and thank you for bringing it up, because every episode we try and reference. In fact, we try and talk about this big list where you and I have been ranking 861 X-Men stories on the road.
Holy moly.
Wow. On the road to 900, with the best story being The House of X, The Powers of 10, the 200th best story being Cable, Blood and Metal, the 400th being Colossus God's Country from Marvel Comics Presents, the number 600th being the Muir Island Saga, the 800th being SXF from Uncanny X-Men, and the worst X-Men story of all time. You know it, you love it. It is 2099, The World of Tomorrow, a book that would have been improved if there was more Man-Thing.
I would say this is probably a 400s book. What do you think?
It is better than at 500 Generation Hope, The Future is a 4-letter word.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
Which
thinking. And I don't
Generation
think
Hope
it's
gets better. I don't think it. Okay, it's probably it's not as good as Colossus God's Country. That's got that John Bogdanov art.
yeah. Like I mean, I don't.
Why didn't
think...
Ann Nesenti write more Man Thing? That seems like the right writer for a
Ooh,
Man
yeah,
Thing.
that'd be a
Give
lot
me
of
some
fun,
Ann Nesenti Man Thing.
right? Get nice and environmental, a little political. That
Give
sounds like a
me
good time.
give me literally 2024 Ann Nesenti Man Thing. Actually, that's what I want. And yes, I've read The Seeds. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. Was
The
it a
Seeds is...
story? Who's to say?
That's okay. It's vibes. It's
The
all
Seeds,
vibes.
The Seeds by Innocenti and David Aha is such a vibes book, and I love that.
Yeah, it's great. I don't think this is as good as Punisher War Journal 6 and 7 at 477.
Then I'm putting it right below it because I don't remember enough about Punisher War Journal to argue that one way or another. But I do think this is better than Captain Britain and the MI13 1-4.
I think that's a good place, you know? Yeah, Punisher War Journal was just that time he fought Wolverine in the jungle for the first time.
But it was the first time he fought Wolverine in the jungle.
Yes. Yep. It's true.
So what does that make it, Adam? What number is that now?
So this is going to be our new 478 Man-Thing Volume 2, number 11.
Oh, that is exciting. And you know what? Our Man-Things aren't done.
No, so we have a few more Man-Things. So if you thought we were stretching the premise a little bit with that story, which I don't agree with, I think that was an X-Men story. You know,
I think for some value of X-Men story.
Yeah, but we are going to go to Uncanny X-Men 144 when Man-Thing does make his way over to the flagship book written by Chris Claremont. So, Zach, what's going on here? The cover says "Cry Despair."
Well, this is a comic featuring Despair, and Despair sucks. Despair is worse Nightmare, and Nightmare's already not a good character. Like, I do not like Nightmare at all.
Agreed. Not a fun, like, I'm not into Nightmare. Despair plus Man-Thing seems a little bit redundant, and they're also going to fight in this issue. So, it does seem like...
Because what it is, it's Chris Claremont, in one of the last times he would do it, honestly, doing the thing where he crosses over all of the stuff he was writing into X-Men, which I adore. Love that for a while, like, Misty Knight's like, oh yeah, Jean Grey, my roommate. My roommate, Jean Grey? Luke Cage is like, yes, I know all of these people. Why are you making it weird? I'm Luke Cage. I hang out with them sometimes. Not really. He did hang out with Storm in a Flophouse once.
I remember that. Yeah, it's true. Storm had some interesting reactions to that.
This is right after John Byrne has left the book. So right after Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm.
It's the issue after the demon stuff. And it is Brent Anderson on the pencils for this one. Anderson, most Marvel readers probably, or at least X-Men fans definitely know him best for God Loves Man Kills.
Mm-hmm.
But I now always think of him as the Astro City guy. And I know that other people don't. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh yeah, from Astro City. I know him.
Yeah. And we've got Joseph Rubinstein on inks, Glennis Wine on colors. So your normal Uncanny crew there. And the story focuses on the father of one Lee Forrester. So at this point in the story, Cyclops has kind of gone off on his own. He is mourning Jean and, has become, I guess, a member of Lee Forrester's crew on her ship.
He does what all men should do in mourning and go to the sea. The sea's siren song calls to him, and he must feel that salt air, the wind on his brow. Like, he wants that. He needs that. So Scott has become a sailor.
Yeah, he's a sailor man. Unfortunately, Lee's father, Jock, has just learned that he has inoperable terminal cancer and has decided that he is going to end his life. And that's how this story starts, which attracts...
to be fair, Despair's like, oh.
Well, it not only attracts Despair, it also attracts Man-Thing. So there's a little bit of both. But Despair is there to really push Jock over the edge to actually commit the act, whereas Man-Thing is just sort of mildly attracted to the sadness and horror.
Man-Thing's just like, there's some weird stuff happening over here. I'm gonna work on instinct.
Yeah, I'd like to watch.
That's the thing about Man-Thing, is that he does like to watch. It's don't worry about Man-Thing over there. He just likes to, I love Man-Thing so much. He's a weirdo.
Yeah. The problem is that when Man-Thing goes to take out Despair, they've fought before, and what happens when Man-Thing tries to fight Despair is that Despair can actually push Man-Thing's fear flames back onto him. So Man-Thing catches on fire. It's not great. Despair takes on the form of the now dead Jock Forrester, and when Lee and Cyclops go to visit, they all have to fight.
Meanwhile, all of the X-Men are making fun of a 13-year-old girl.
They really are, like, teasing the heck. Remember that if Demon came right before this, that Kitty has gone through this incredibly traumatic experience of being chased through the mansion by the Ngari.
She's been here for like 4 days, and she's already destroyed most of their house and found out that in the future that she's really cool.
But through no fault of her own. And they are just like teasing her unmercifully to the point.
By we of course mean Wolverine and Nightcrawler, the two people who would absolutely be like just like going back and forth on this one.
Yeah,
because they both actually like legit respect that. Oh wow, this kid, this literal baby child, stopped a demon in a pretty cool way. In the way that they, as dudes, show their respect is making fun of each other, and they forget that she's a 13-year-old girl. And I swear, if Jean was alive, this is the thing she would walk in and she'd be like, "You freaking idiots. Yeah. You two dummies. Do you not think for like 5 seconds?" And I understand Nightcrawler has a lot of compassion. He is normally a thoughtful person. I 100% believe that this is a thing he would do.
He does bring her a nice warm jacket because it's cold outside, because she does storm out the wall through with her powers. And I also like Kurt's jacket here. He's wearing this like lovely purple hood with a fur lining over the hood. And he apologizes, so that's nice.
He's the one to apologize. Wolverine never would. He would tell her.
No, of course not. We also do get, I forgot, I didn't want to skip this, but we do get this great billiard scene with Scott using his eye blasts to basically, like, master of geometry, get all of the pool balls, and it's really fun.
It's fun. It's also one of those things. It's one of the things in comics I kind of like hate. It's like, look at this feat that he's pulling. And I don't really hate it for this scene. More, I hate it for how many times I've had to see someone like, oh yeah, Scott Summers, his real powers is his tactical mind. Look at all this geometry stuff he can do. It's like, nah, Chris Claremont was told that he had to show that he could do lasers before he fought the Man-Thing. So he just made him shoot a billiards ball because he thought that would be fun. Scott does almost get into a fight with one of the crewmen, and then they respect him afterwards.
Yeah. So after Scott pulls a color of money, he and Lee do get sucked into despair by despair, and Scott is in this hallucinogenic vision.
Lee asks him to come with her to her dad's place because her dad seems weird. So he's immediately going on a private rendezvous with the captain, his best girlfriend, Lee Forrester.
But they're not even dating at this point. Like, they're just
not yet.
They will, but not at this point.
If Lee has her way, shoot.
Oh, she's into it. But in this dream, Scott is fighting off Sentinels of the Giant Size X-Men team. He's back on the Butte with Jean when they had sex before the Dark Phoenix saga.
What a bad way to lose your virginity. I know we don't talk about that in the context of Dark Phoenix saga enough, but what a terrible way for Scott Summers to lose his virginity. One, not to a real person. Very funny, very Scott Summers. Mm-hmm. Two, the person immediately dies and does evil.
Sure. Also, no mattress up there. I mean, it's just a rocky, flat surface.
Gosh, honestly, look, mesas are not known for their comfort. That sounds bad. Like, I'm 32 years old. I don't need that in my life anymore.
That's okay. That's okay. But he does wake up from this vision. You know, he is fighting against. He feels like, you know, he's really gotten past his mourning for Jean in this dream scene. Man Thing jumps in to try and help, and stuff just, I don't know. Like the concussive blasts, I guess, kind of don't work on Despair. Everything just ends up on fire.
Because all that no fear burn at the touch of Man-Thing. So I guess like people were afraid, and Man-Thing didn't touch them, but his fire was already started.
Yeah. So Cyclops manages to rescue Lee from the flames, get back to the little hydrofoil they took over to the shore, and the house burns down, and you know, Man-Thing goes back out for another walk.
It is weird that people just really struggle. They're like, okay, Man-Thing's in this comic book. What does he do? Crap, he just looks cool. We don't know what to do with Man-Thing.
Chris Claremont knows what to do with him, I guess. You know, he's involved. He's there so that Scott can go on this psychological journey, you know, and have this vision, as Claremont likes to write.
I feel like our last issue very explicitly had Chris Claremont saying he doesn't know what to do with Man-Thing. I feel like he was like, I'm 11 issues into this thing and I've got nothing.
Yeah,
I'm out.
He must like the character enough, though, to bring him over. And I think Brett Anderson does a nice job drawing this issue.
Brett Anderson draws a great Man-Thing, and he's not a guy that I would immediately peg for a Man-Thing artist. I like his Man-Thing.
Yeah, he does a good job. I like the art here. I like the vision. It fits into the sort of style of the book of the time, and it looks good. Is this like essential? I don't know.
I mean, it's collected in Essential X-Men Volume 3, I believe.
It is. We didn't neglect to mention that it is yet another retelling of Scott's parachute story with Alex.
Okay, you and me are like another retelling. We do have to remember that like people just didn't like keep these books around all the time.
No, I know. They had to remind people what the origins were. I get it. It's true.
It's just happened. People need to stop doing it, though. I agree.
This isn't the first time this has been told.
No. The first time it happens is in the original Phoenix Saga, I want to say.
I think so. Okay. So
I want to say it's right around there.
I was going to say it can't be here. All right.
It has to be because they have to establish what happened to his dad.
Yeah, right. So that we can get to the reveal of the Starjammers.
Unless, wait, does it happen in the Neil Adams stuff? With Havoc's first appearance?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. I don't remember anymore.
We should know this. But
no,
I don't
we
know.
shouldn't.
Zach,
why should we?
I'm not looking
I don't
it up.
care. It's one of those two times. If it's not the one, it's the other. And you're reading some pretty decent comics, even if we get it wrong. So suck it up, I guess.
I'm not a Wikipedia. That's what I'm going to say. Is this better or worse than the first story?
It's better than the first story. It is.
I think so too. Is it still in the 400s though?
Probably. It's
fine. It's not bad.
This isn't the best. This isn't the best it gets. Do we got like where's the closest? Submergence of Japan is at 430. Submergence of Japan is better. The first Havoc is better at 433.
Yep, I would agree.
Hellfire Gambit's probably better than this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better than Into the Void?
Oh boy. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's as good as Skinning of Souls at 459, which is X-Men 17 to 19.
Then I'm putting it below X Babies at 460, but above the X-Men versus the Avengers 1 through 4. A story that is incomplete.
That's a great place for it. You know, this is a fine Uncanny X-Men issue. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, you know, it's middle of the road. And our next story, I don't know what road it's on. It's a wild one, but I know that your pulse went up when you got a chance to add this to the to the show. So I'm gonna let you introduce this next one, Zach.
Well, I want to introduce it with a reading.
A reading.
A reading of the text, really.
Yes, please.
And Adam, and those of you at home, feel free to read along with me. Where lies the strangling fruit that came from the hand of the sinner? I shall bring forth the seeds of the dead to share with the worms that gather in the darkness and surround the world with the power of their lives, while from the dim-lit halls of other places, forms that never were and never could be writhe for the impatience of the few who never saw what could have been in the black water with the sun shining at midnight. Those fruits shall come right, and in the darkness of that which is golden shall split open to reveal the revelation of the fatal softness in the earth. The shadow of the abyss are like the petals of a monstrous flower that shall blossom within the skull and expand the mind beyond what any man can bear. But whether it decays under the earth or above on green fields or out in the sea or in the very air, all shall come to revelation and to reveal in the knowledge of the strangling fruit, and the hand of the sinner shall rejoice, for there is no sin in shadow or in light that the seeds of the dead cannot forgive. And there shall be in the planting in the shadows a grace and a mercy, from which shall blossom dark flowers, and their teeth shall devour and sustain and herald the passage of an age. That which dies shall still know life in death. For all that decays is not forgotten and reanimated. It shall walk the world in the bliss of not knowing, and then there shall be a fire that knows the naming of you, and in the presence of the strangling fruit, its dark flame shall acquire every part of you that remains. Where lies the strangling fruit that came from the hand of the sinner? Okay, you were supposed to stop me before I circled back around, Adam.
No, you were in the tower. You were going, Folks, I hope you recognize that. If you don't, you need to read Annihilation.
Go read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, because that's what Ben Percy's doing in this one.
Ben Percy certainly has read Annihilation, because when I read this, I just got such a smile on my face, because I was like, oh, he's just doing Annihilation. Okay. What is this book, Zach? What is this comic book?
This is Weapon Plus World War IV, World War IV, Volume 1. There's 2 stories in there. We'll get to the second one as well, because it's equally delightful. It's called Weapon 4, or IV, by Ben Percy and George Genti. There's also a Weapon 2 story by Ryan Caddy and David Baudion. We'll get to it. If you don't know what Weapon 2 is, folks,
fun surprise
for a treat.
Really,
do you remember?
You know what's annoying is that they spoil that on the cover. That they shouldn't have spoiled that on the cover, but I guess that could have been a selling point.
It had to have been a selling point to weirdos like you and me
and
Paul Scheer. No, so do you remember? It's literally as Krakoa was starting. Editor Chris Robinson has his own weird thing that he's doing that doesn't go anywhere because the pandemic hits and then Robinson leaves Marvel. But do you remember the Weapon Plus stuff that was going on?
Yeah. I mean, it was really establishing what all of the in-between weapon numbers were. We'd kind of established that Captain America was part of the weapon program.
That was clearly established by Grant Morrison. I think Nuke was established somewhere in there, maybe by Remender officially, but I'm not sure. We knew what Weapon 3 was. In fact, we did know what Weapon 2 was thanks to Ryan North and Chip Zdarsky. This is a different but connected Weapon 2, and it still fits in the theme of it. Anyway, they were doing a bunch of stuff about all the other weapon programs, which is delightful. All by completely different writers. It was a weird anthology. Didn't really work. It was supposed to build up to Weapon 30. That's Weapon XXX. Great. No notes. So good. Doesn't get anywhere. But we do get this. It's Weapon 4. IV.
Yep.
It's IV. It's they took the Ted Sallis Man-Thing formula from the Mountain Goat song for Ted Sallis, and they used it to make a super soldier named Jackson Strode, who is manslaughter.
Okay, yes, manslaughter. Whoa, that's fun.
I love Benjamin Percy so much. Here's the thing, and comics fans, you're not going to like to hear this. Benjamin Percy writes at the exact level that his audience is prepared for, which means when he's writing Wolverine or X-Force, it's kind of dumb. And when he's writing literary criticism, it's very smart, and you can tell that he teaches this stuff. And when he writes thriller novels, he writes them so that, you're kind of fist bumping the whole time, even though he could do literary fiction and has incredibly great like short stories that show those chops. He also knows he's got to sell this stuff, so he does it. And I can tell you, nothing sold me on a comic book faster than the cover of Weapon Plus World War IV, which it's Ivy. Get it? Like, I can't get over the fact that it's Ivy. So freaking funny to me. It's manslaughter standing in front of an American flag. It's a Kyle Holtz cover, and he's holding 3 Gatling guns strapped together.
Yep.
With a helmet that says burn on it.
Yep. And we get right into the annihilation right on page 1 because there is a quote unquote dome of fog, which 4 soldiers enter through, and sort of, it's a little wobbly as they walk through. And it's just a straight up like homage to the movie by Alex Garland. So we then cut to Russia, where we get introduced to Manslaughter, who's being tortured and then transforms.
He is, and then they're like, okay, you finished your mission. Good job, Jackson. Hey, we got one more job for you. He's like, I was out. This was supposed to be my last one. And Percy knows that he's like, I got to get you guys the broad strokes just so like you understand who this character, this archetype is. Because I've got 20 pages. I got 20 pages, and I want to draw some weird plant stuff to be drawn. A thing that Ben Percy was doing a lot of at the time.
Yeah, and when Manslaughter goes into the Dome of Fog, which is happening in the state of Washington, the Olympic Peninsula, he starts encountering things like you might see in the movie Annihilation, such as...
Adam, do you know about the Olympic National Forest mycelium network?
Isn't that where they can kind of sense things? Like it's kind of Black Tom-ish, right? Like they can sense...
Yeah, that's what Black Tom's coming from. But the Olympic National Forests, that's like any mycelium network.
Okay.
The Olympic National Forests mycelium network is arguably the largest living thing on Earth.
Wow. How big is it? Like acres and acres and miles?
Like square miles. Like it's a huge mycelium network.
Wow.
In fact, that came out at the same time. Ben Percy wrote a whole book about it called The Unfamiliar Garden. You can go listen to our podcast interview about it. And actually it's upsetting, but of his comic trilogy series cycle, whatever, The Unfamiliar Garden's the weakest book of them all. In fact, his latest one, The Sky Vaults, I think, like, it was one of my favorite books I read last year. It's a rip-roaring good time.
Nice. Well, anyway, Manslaughter's there and gets attacked by zombies, kind of like plant corpse people, and does his work to, he's got all kinds of fun things that can happen with his body. Spikes can shoot out, he can shoot off spikes, he can just hold a big gun and shoot people.
And what he does is he finds his target, and his target is a person who has had the swimming pool thing from Annihilation happen to them.
Yeah, it's another reference.
It is from the movie Annihilation. And we learn that it is Jackson's brother, Philip. And Jackson's really mad about all this. He eventually gets everything out, talks to his handler, Blackgrass, I think is his name, and kills him and says, I'm going free. I don't care about you giving me a cure for this anymore. You screwed with my family, so I'm leaving.
He also just acknowledges the fact that they probably don't have an antidote for him anyway. They did this experiment without any intention of transforming him back. So
feels like Ted Sallis would have come up with something.
Yeah, Manslaughter's just gonna wander the earth and do stuff. He
goes into X-Force after this for one arc that unfortunately,
yeah, I remember that.
It feels like I didn't love that arc to start because I think Robert Gill's art isn't up to what it needs to be in that one, which is odd because I actually think Gill gets so much better like the next time he's on the book.
Yeah,
but that one arc with Manslaughter, unfortunately, doesn't live up to what it needs to artistically. And I feel similar about Georges Genti on this. I don't think Genti's the right fit. He has some of the moodiness that he needs, but like I keep comparing it to like what Josh Cassara was doing on X-Force. Not that far away from this, I keep thinking of all the like. I think of the I Breathed a Body by Zach Thompson with art by Andy McDonald, and like the weird bio horror stuff, or like what Morgan Beam does with a lot of her work. And like there are so many artists that I would kill to see draw this character. Kelly Williams, Nacho Man Sandy Cabbage, Kelly Williams would do an amazing job with this character. So many people would do a great job with this character, and I just don't think Georges Genti's got it in him.
I don't dislike the art here. I think it's fine, but I agree. There could be something that was a little bit more hashtag fungus core, that would up the ante on this. I also appreciate some of the design details here, like the weapon plus that is used inside the book to indicate the end is basically just the Tom Muller Krakoan X, but turned 45 degrees. So
can I tell you a super fun fact about that?
Yeah.
This is the tiniest bit of trivia that anyone will ever have, but you're going to remember it when I say it. The first appearance of the Tom Muller Krakoan X in an actual printed comic is not in House of X. It is Wolverine and Captain America Weapon Plus Volume 1, number 1, where it is that logo, but on its side.
Oh, get out. That came out beforehand, huh?
That came out like the week before House of X, I think.
I love that. Well, speaking of the Krakoan era, the second story here does involve an attack against Orcus. So we're on an Orcus sea vessel known as the Trident, and who shows up to stop them? But boy, howdy, it's
brute force.
Yes,
it's brute force, baby.
Yes, brute force. The infamous characters from the 1980s, who then only had that one miniseries. You mentioned Paul Scheer before. There's a very funny Disney Plus TV show where Paul Scheer tries to get brute force made into an anime. I mean, it's a goof. It's not really happening, but
it's okay. So you say it's a goof, but so brute force. They appeared in the brute force 1 through 4.
Yep.
Never to be seen again, right? Wrong. Do you know where they next show up?
I mean, did they show up before this?
Yes. They showed up in 2014's Deadpool biannual number 1 by Paul Scheer.
Oh, okay. Fun. So he got to play around with the characters.
He legit brought them back. That's why he does that, because he legitimately thinks brute force is delightful.
Oh, that's great. Well, this is a quick story. It's David Baldion doing the art, which
Ryan Caddy writing.
Looks absolutely wonderful. And they attack Orcus. Unfortunately, the dolphin
Dr. Echo
does die.
The thing about brute force in this is that they all talk in emojis.
Yeah. I mean,
like there's thought put into how brute force would actually operate in the context of this, because they're like, yeah, they have an animal instinct, so they can be like, yes, good, bad, safe, but not complex. And I think that actually works to this and makes it, because here's the thing. When Gmo was making Weapon 2B animal experiments, that was riffing on We 3.
Yes.
That's what it was. It was like, hey, look, you know We 3, that book? I'm saying We 3 here. But Marvel can't do that because they don't own We 3. So Ryan North and Chip Zdarsky was like, hey, there's a squirrel Wolverine called Squirrelverine, and that can be Weapon 2. That's also very funny. Especially because in that comic, the cat that Aunt May adopts from Howard the Duck becomes a We 3.
Oh, I love that.
It just becomes the We 3 cat, which is so funny.
So
anyway, it works. It works to be like, and brute force is in this.
Oh,
and they are part of the weapon. Like, there's like a sadness to it, which is weird.
I was going to say,
pulls it out.
Yeah, this is a short story, but it is tragic. You get the sense that not only are these fierce warriors, but that they are animals. They have animal noises, and there's a sadness to it. It's kind of indicated that the comic was like an ode. Like the actual brute force #1 appears on the last page as,
Yes.
I guess it was like urban legend turned into a comic.
Well, in Marvel continuity, there is like the Marvel Comics group exists and
right.
licenses out certain superheroes, and that works when the story needs it to work.
Yeah, here it's credited to one of the assistants back in the early days of the program. Came up with the code names too, but it's suggested that this team brute force is going to go off on other missions, and I have to say, Baldion makes them look really cool. They look great. They don't look super goofy, and they look like they could go on some adventures.
Yeah, no, like here's the thing: Baldion makes brute force work. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah. So, of the books we've covered this week, this might be the most far afield, but like we still got Orcus here. We're still part of the Weapon Plus program, which is all connected back to Wolverine. So I think
it counts more than I think it counts more than that First Man thing one, even though Chris Claron said it. Like, all of this stuff comes back to X-Men in one way or another. Like, it's all in that realm. And also, absolutely. I don't care. I can still think of how good it was when I saw the manslaughter design for the first time. I was like, yes, this is what I want in comics. People don't seem to understand. What the sickos want is this weird plant dude with Gatling guns. That's all I want.
Yeah, it's not a bad strategy at all.
I want Jackson Strode to become an eco-terrorist.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
X-Men and Green. By that, Jackson Strode finds Nature Girl and is like, actually, I think you were right. And I have some notes.
High five.
Let's make this happen, people.
Let's take curse out. Let's put manslaughter in. There we go.
I would. Curse can stay, I guess. Like, I don't remember what happened in Realm of X because that book was,
that was
a low ranker on this list. I know something happened to Curse in that. I'm not paying attention to it though.
I couldn't even tell you. I never finished that many.
It's a rough. It's Adam. You remember the return to the Asgard War?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's on that level of rough, but without the joy of Boom Boom.
Oh no, it was way worse than that, Zach. At least the issue that I read. All right, is this better?
Issue you didn't even keep going. Okay, no, we'll have to.
I don't want to get into this. But I will say
it's too new.
When I hit the first issue and Marrow had a British accent, I was out. I was like, they don't know what they're doing here. Okay, so is this better or worse than 461? What we just ranked, the Uncanny X-Men number 144. Better or worse?
I mean, I think so.
I think it's better too. So let's work our way up.
Let's see.
This is still goofy. It still owes a lot to Jeff Vandermeer, but I think there's a lot of fun here.
There's a lot of fun here. That's the problem. The problem with this is I don't think the execution is bad. I think the writing does exactly what it needs to for a 20-page story. I don't particularly love the art, so I don't think it lives up to what I want. But in general, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think we might be in the low 300s here,
Hold on. This is a good comparison.
Yeah. What do you got?
403 is X-Men 2099, Doom.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like this is X-Men 2099 territory where I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in it, even if the specific package of comic that we're talking about isn't a piece of greatness.
Yeah.
You have New X-Men 132 highlighted at 409. That's Ambient Magnetic Fields. That's the Lorna issue with Phil Jimenez art. I think that's better than this, but I
think Sabretooth in Charge of Weapon X at 413 is better than this.
Then let's put it right below 414, which is Exiles 1-5. The Saladin Ahmed Exiles with Javier Rodriguez, but above X-Men 2099 1-3. I think that's kind of right.
That's a great place for
the list Wolverine that has Weapon 16, which is weaponized religion that they defeat with atheism in the most Jason Aaron thing that Jason Aaron's ever written.
Jason Aaron coming soon on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What's that going to be like? Oh, baffling. My God.
A truly
I wish them all the best.
I don't hate Jason Aaron. We just don't vibe on the same level, which is weird because like we are like on the same wavelength, but not on the same frequency. If you are thinking of a sine diagram as I am, we are like point to point. We're good. If you average us out, me and Jason Aaron are probably about the same. We are just completely shifted, like 45 degrees from another, and we cannot get aligned.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to. But all right. So this is gonna be our new 415.
415, yes.
Is that what we said? Yeah.
We said 415. That's what we
Weapon
said.
Plus World War Ivy.
I think this is good.
Love that. That's a lot of fun.
Adam, the thing about Man-Thing is that I love him. Man-Thing's my boy.
Oh, I was just going to say it was fun playing with our Man-Things this week.
There we go, everyone. We did it. We did all of them. All of the jokes you can do about this swamp guy. Hey, is or is not probably the best Man-Thing thing to exist? I don't know. I actually haven't read a lot of the Steve Gerber stuff because 70s counterculture just doesn't always click with me. But is the best Man-Thing the fact that he shows up in that black and white Werewolf by Night special and you're like, that's Man-Thing.
It's pretty great.
Man-Thing right there. That's just a straight up, like a good looking,
he looked great
physical
too.
Man-Thing.
They did a great job with that.
A non-CGI, just like a puppet Man-Thing. The way that Man-Thing should be, because Moss exists. Man-Thing should look like a guy in a suit, honestly. Like, that's his vibe.
It looks fantastic. Lurching around. It was pretty great.
I love Man-Thing. Such a good
Zach, we did
character. So, Adam, what do you got going on this week? What should people know?
Folks can always follow me on social. Adam Reck on Blue Sky and Instagram. Arthur Stacy on Twitter. And next week, Zach, you have the week off.
I do have the week off. I have to go to very important trade shows. And I do not want to record during a busy week. However, if you are in the HVAC industry and you happen to see me, do not bring it up. I don't need people knowing what I do in my spare time. If they ask, I'll say I've got a thing, but I don't say the name of the show. If they were really that curious, they could Google my name. It's pretty common, but you can find me. If you Google my name and then like podcast, I bet you find me pretty quick.
Yeah, but don't go to any lengths to try and find Zach. He does not want to be found.
Don't try and find me, but if you happen to be there, also don't, unless you're buying me a beer.
The secret is be cool, okay? Be cool.
It's like be chill and don't be like, no one's ever done this, so I don't know why I'm worried. I'm making up scenarios in my head where in a completely different context, someone's going to be like, that guy from that X-Men podcast? Is that the co-host of the third most popular X-Men podcast that I hear talking about the upcoming DOE requirements and how they're going to impact our market?
Oh my God.
By the way, if you do search Zachary Jenkins podcast, it is me and then me on a different podcast.
Oh, nice. Yeah. See, so you're confusing people. They don't know which podcast they should be listening to, you know?
Well, they could think of the interview with Zach Jenkins on the Appalachian Way podcast. I know nothing about any of those things.
Wow.
But I'm deeply curious because that ain't me. Oh, I'm sorry. Zach Jenkins does the Appalachian Way podcast. The interview is on Working Class Fishing podcast.
Oh, interesting. So there's another of you out there who we need to be worried about at other trade shows.
I mean, Zach was a very popular name 30-something years ago. And like 30-something-year-old dudes have podcasts. So that's not that crazy.
I sympathize. There are other Adam Rex. That's why I don't have the Adam Rex handle on Twitter. So,
there's other Adam Rex. That is a much less common last name. But I digress.
Telling you. So, if you do tune in next week, Zach is off, but I will be joined by Harvard professor, poet, and friend Stephanie Burt.
Who you may know from the New York Times article about her upcoming class at Harvard about Taylor Swift.
Yes, and Steph has been on the show before and is coming back to talk about some Kitty Pride stories. So that'll be fun.
I am so excited to listen to this podcast as a listener and enjoy my friends talking about stuff and not having to endure. They're very closely related words phonetically. But my nonsense.
Oh, we love your nonsense, Zach.
There's a certain brand of person that enjoys this nonsense. But until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survive the experience.
Get it!